Listen. The room went quiet the moment your name crossed their lips. That kind of silence isn't peace. It's pressure. It's confession disguised as calm. Every smirk they once threw at you now hides behind their teeth, tight, trembling, because deep down they know the same person they doubted, the one they dismissed, became the proof they swore would never exist. Their laughter aged poorly. Their certainty collapsed quietly. You felt it, haven't you? That invisible shift when energy changes hands. When mockery turns into curiosity. When presence alone commands the air. They used to talk over you. Now they pause before saying your name. That pause, that hesitation, it's worth more than any applause. It's acknowledgement from those who swore you'd fade away. But here you are, alive, composed, and louder in silence than they ever were in noise. That silence, it's not emptiness. It's revenge spoken fluently without words. The kind that seeps under skin, crawls into thought and stays. You didn't need to raise your voice. You didn't need to prove a point. You became one. And that's the part that burns them most. Every calm breath you take now screams what words never could. You won. You just never said it out loud. There's a beauty in restraint, in watching those who underestimate you try to rewrite their memories. They'll call it luck. They'll call it timing. They'll say they always believed. Lies wrapped in panic, because deep down they remember how it felt to doubt you. And now that feeling haunts them. Every time your name appears, their silence confesses the truth. They were wrong. Now let me ask something. When did your silence first start speaking for you? When did it stop hurting and start echoing? Write it down. The moment, the year, the shift, because that's the proof of your rebirth. The night you turned quiet into power. The day they stopped laughing and started listening. Facts never beg to be seen. They wait, patient, ruthless, until one day they stand in the middle of everything, undeniable. That's what you became, undeniable. The same faces that mocked your drive now choke on their own disbelief. Because nothing terrifies the comfortable more than watching the quiet one rise without permission. They thought you were chasing, but all this time you were building something beyond their reach. They never noticed the nights you disappeared into the grind. The empty rooms, the whispers that became focus. They mistook your silence for surrender. But silence isn't weakness, it's surgery. It's cutting away noise so truth can breathe. You learned to operate in shadows, not because you were afraid, but because the light they offered was too dim for your vision. You needed something purer, sharper, real. And now the truth stands in front of them, wearing your face. The same eyes they look down on now, look through them. The same hands they called idle now hold the blueprint of everything they tried to imitate. They'll tell stories, rewrite the past, pretend they saw potential. But you know better. They saw fear, not yours, theirs. Fear of what would happen if your silence ever turned into movement. Every insult they threw was inventory. You stored it, labeled it, turned it into ammunition. They thought they were breaking you. They were feeding you. Every doubt was protein. Every rejection, every closed door, training ground. And when it was time, you didn't knock. You kicked the frame off its hinges and walked through without noise. That's evolution. Remember this, facts don't shout. They arrive. They walk in wearing results. And now you are that fact, the living evidence that disbelief can be weaponized. Let them talk. Let them spin stories. Because truth doesn't chase rumors. It just stands there, calm, heavy, and undeniable. Silence is not the absence of sound. It's the presence of control. Every moment you refuse to react, every insult you let pass without response, that was strategy, not surrender. Silence is the most dangerous language. It confuses the loud and exposes the weak. They called it arrogance. They called it pride. But what they didn't see was precision. Every quiet moment was a calculation. Every calm stare, a move on the board they didn't even know existed. When you stop speaking, people start revealing themselves. Listen long enough, and truth begins to leak out through their tone, their body, their eye. That's the secret most never learn. Silence isn't passive, it's investigative. It's power disguised as peace. It lets you study motives, patterns, lies, without interference. The more they talk, the more they unravel. The less you speak, the more they wonder what you know. And that's the tension that builds empires. Because silence forces the world to sit with its own noise. It amplifies guilt. It magnifies insecurity. Those who once laughed loud now whisper, afraid that your quiet means something dangerous. They can't measure it. They can't predict it. That uncertainty, that's fear. Not of what you've done, but of what you might. You've become unpredictable, unreadable, untouchable. The silence that once isolated you now shields you like armor. Understand this. Real control isn't in speech. It's in pause. The hesitation before the storm. The glance before the strike, the space between their sentence and your smile. That's where dominance lives. Because anyone can shout, anyone can argue, but only the powerful can stay quiet while the world trembles to fill the void. That's not silence, that's command. And when you mastered that, they lost the game before realizing it had started. Laugh quietly at the chaos, because it's yours now. Every piece of disorder they threw at you, you rearranged it. You made a masterpiece from the wreckage. That's the beauty they'll never understand. You don't run from chaos. You study it, bend it, make it serve you. While they panic at the noise, you find rhythm in it. You find patterns in the madness. You wear unpredictability like perfume, subtle, haunting, unforgettable. See, power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it chuckles, sometimes it smirks. You learn to play their game with rules they didn't know existed. You became the storm that walks instead of screams. Every move you make feels accidental, but it's deliberate. Every delay, every pause, every half smile, calculated. You mastered the art of looking careless while orchestrating everything. That's control disguised as chaos. Genius wearing a cracked grin. And they hate it. They hate not knowing where your mind goes when you're silent. They fear what kind of plan hides behind that calm stare. That's the point. Unpredictability is intimidation without aggression. It's psychological warfare delivered with grace. The louder they get, the quieter you become, until their confidence cracks. You can see it in their eyes. Confusion dressed as courage. And that's when you know you've won. Remember, chaos doesn't destroy the strong, it reveals them. You learn to make peace with uncertainty, to dance with it. Every setback became a test of rhythm, every betrayal, a lesson in timing. You didn't just survive disorder, you mastered it. That's the whisper they can't ignore. That's the grin they can't forget. The kind of calm that doesn't need to shout, because it already owns the room. Scars are not trophies. They're archives. Every mark, every unseen wound, a chapter of survival written in flesh and silence. You didn't collect scars for pity. You collected evidence, proof that pain was never wasted. Every time they tried to break you, they only sharpened your edges. You learned endurance from betrayal, strategy from loss, composure from chaos. That's what they never understood. Pain isn't a setback, it's training. Brutal, sacred, necessary training. The world remembers results, not suffering. So you turned your pain into productivity. You let every scar whisper reminders. Never again, never softer, never slower. Pain taught what comfort never could. It taught you how to sit in darkness without losing vision, how to bleed without losing balance. You turned heartbreak into habit. You stopped asking why me and started asking what next. That's evolution under pressure, becoming art sculpted by fire. And now when they see you smile, they mistake it for peace. But it's not peace, it's power. The kind that comes from knowing what it took to survive. Every scar you hide carries a secret. The version of you that couldn't be destroyed. Let them talk about strength. You've lived it. You've felt it bite and heal at the same time. You've tasted defeat and still walked forward with a grin that says try again. So here's the truth. Scars don't ruin beauty. They define it. They are maps of every battle you refuse to live. They are your silent autobiography, written not in ink, but in endurance. And when you trace them, you remember every night you could have quit, but didn't. That's not weakness, that's legacy. The kind born in silence and proven in pain. Not every hand offered is a helping one. Some just want to weigh your climb. That's the cruel joke of success. The more you rise, the more masks you start to recognize. The friendly ones, the loyal ones, the ones who claim to believe in you. Their smiles start to glitch. You begin to see the truth flicker behind their eyes. Envy, doubt, quiet competition disguised as care. That's when it hits you. Not everyone cheering wants you to win. Some just want front row seats to your fall. You used to explain yourself over and over, trying to prove intentions, trying to prove worth, but you learned the hard way. Explanations drain power. Real ones don't need defending. They speak through movement, through silence, through unbothered presence. You stopped chasing validation when you realized validation can be faked. Applause can be rehearsed. Loyalty can be seasoned. That realization burned, but it also purified. Now you look at people differently, not with judgment, with clarity. You see who adds weight and who adds wind, who speaks from truth and who speaks from fear. It's strange how silence reveals what words try to hide. The moment you stopped giving constant access, the masks started slipping. People don't like it when their mirror stops reflecting them. They start showing what they truly are, uncomfortable, impatient, exposed. So you learn to move quietly, selectively. You protect your peace like currency. Not everyone deserves the energy it takes to understand you. That's your new standard measured distance. You don't burn bridges anymore. You just let them collapse from disuse. That's not cruelty, that's balance. Because the moment you stopped explaining, you started ascending. And they can keep their noise. You've got altitude now. Greatness isn't magic. It's repetition performed with obsession. Every day, small rituals carve new structure into the chaos. You learn that consistency isn't boring, it's dangerous. Because when discipline becomes instinct, hesitation dies. Every quiet hour you spend alone isn't loneliness. It's sharpening. Every refusal to explain, every early morning, every ignored distraction, those are your silent prayers to progress. Not to be seen, to become. You built rituals out of rebellion. 1 hour of silence to remind yourself you don't owe the world your noise. 1 moment of cold discomfort to remember control isn't supposed to feel easy. 1 decision a day that scares you to stay alive inside your purpose. You repeat them again and again until they turn into rhythm, the kind that others call madness, because they can't sustain it. But that's the secret. It's not about strength. It's about permanence. The routine itself becomes armor. It strips emotion from doubt. It replaces fear with motion. You no longer need motivation, you've replaced it with structure. The world craves excitement. You crave precision. They want results tomorrow. You're building eternity one habit at a time. And every time you keep that promise to yourself, you steal a little more power back from everything that once controlled you. Ritual is rebellion dressed in patience. It's how you transform pain into discipline and silence into foundation. You start small, a single action, done perfectly every day. Then it multiplies, then it consumes, until even chaos starts to move in your rhythm. That's how legends are made. Not by lightning, but by the constant strike of the same hand in the same place. Until the world finally cracks. They taught you to blend in, to speak softer, to move smaller, to wear a version of yourself that kept others comfortable. You did it for years, wore the mask so well it almost felt natural, smiled when tired, nodded when furious, hid your brilliance behind humility so fragile it started to choke you. That's how they steal identity. Not with force, but with approval. They call it politeness. They call it fitting in, but really, it's disappearance dressed as discipline. Then one day something snapped. Maybe it was a look, a word, a quiet realization that pretending was more exhausting than losing. You stopped performing. You stopped seeking permission to exist. You looked in the mirror and saw someone you barely recognized. Polished, predictable, diluted. So you did the only honest thing left. You peeled it off, piece by piece, layer by layer, until what remained wasn't pretty, but it was real. Authenticity feels violent at first. It terrifies those who built their comfort on your compliance. They'll call you cold, arrogant, changed. And they're right. You did change. You became allergic to pretending. You became dangerous, not because you wanted power, but because you stopped apologizing for having it. That's the kind of transformation people don't clap for. They whisper about it, because your truth makes them nervous. Now you walk differently, talk differently. There's no need to convince. No need to adjust. The world that once demanded you shrink now has to make room. The mask they loved is gone, and in its place stands someone unpredictable, unfiltered, unafraid. That's the new you, not created by approval, but by absence of it. And that's the kind of authenticity that can't be rehearsed. It can only be earned.